Hello and welcome to Wise Attraction. I'm Bibi Babs and I'm your host. One of our goals here at Wise Attraction is to help you build a foundation that's solid enough to create long-lasting marriage when you get married. And to do that, today I'll be talking to you about love and money. What financial conversations you should be having before you say I do. So these are things that you need to be thinking about and you need to bring up to your potential spouse. Stay tuned. So first of all, I want to begin by talking about why finance is important when it comes to relationships. Firstly, financial issues can determine the lifespan of a relationship. Literally, there's a study that shows that couples who argue about money once a week are 30% more likely to get a divorce. You know, the thing with having an African background, I know that we Africans is almost like, oh, when you marry, you've married for good or for worse. So you have a lot of people struggling even with financial issues and choosing to stay in the marriage with the suffering. So you might not have the same divorce rate when it comes to financial issues, but the issues that having financial difficulty, and when I say difficulty, I'm not even necessarily talking about poverty. I'm talking about the financial relationship between the two parties. Those issues that can come up can literally mar the relationship. You can find out that you're now roommates with your spouse simply because of financial issues that are unresolved. Also, the stress caused by money is one of the leading causes of relationship tension and unhappiness. And if you and your partner cannot get on the same page, remember, like I said earlier, and I'm not necessarily even talking about not being able to afford things. I'm talking about how you spend your money. You know, it's if you and your partner, you're not in a place where you can get on the same page for when it comes to money and finances, you're setting yourself up for lots of arguments in the future when it comes to money. So really, I know that when people, a lot of conversations, majority of the conversations I've heard when people talk about love and money is always usually around what's the financial status of the person I'm trying to get with. You know, usually starts and stops there. How much are they earning? How much are they making? You know, are they financially comfortable? Are they able to not just cater to themselves but cater to another person? And it's more predominant when it's women. You know, for women, there's this whole issue of, oh, my prince charming, trophy wife type of thing. And a lot of women tend to get into that position of, oh, I'm going to marry someone rich and he's going to take care of the bills. His money is our money. My money is my money. Well, gone are the days when all of that used to cut it and be enough. You know, it's not just for me personally. I've come to realize that the financial status of a person, how much they are earning, is not as important as their financial behavior and their financial values. Now, you can get married to somebody that is poor, and because they have the right attitude to money and the right values when it comes to money, the person can rise up the ranks, the person can build something. And even if, let's say, the person doesn't rise up the ranks, you and your partner can also have a harmonious relationship regardless of their financial status. On the other hand, you can marry somebody that is earning a lot, that is a high earner, whether it's through business, whether it's through their job, whatever it is, they are earning a lot of money. But the the issues that both of you have as a result of money is crazy. It's on another level because of both of you, your financial behaviors and your values when it comes to money, and your behaviors that affect your finances. Now, for me personally, I would say the thing that is most important to look out for when before you say I do, conversations you should be having with someone you're planning, you're looking to get married to, is how do they value money? What are their values in relation to money? What are their behaviors towards money? And what behaviors do they have that affect how they relate with money or how they spend money? So in terms of financial behaviors and values, you want to look at things like, are they generous? Are they generous? You want to know if this person is generous because you want to know if your finances are going to be shared when you eventually say I do. Is it someone that, because some people, believe you me, I know someone that married a lady that married a guy that supposedly he's rich and all of that. Like, okay, this person is working, this person has this amount of businesses, so you're expecting that they're earning a certain amount of money, which seemingly is quite large. But literally, this woman and her children, they are living in poverty because this guy is not generous. He's not willing to share what he's making is his. He chooses how he spends his money. He controls it. And so he just lives, he does the bare minimum, when it comes to the woman. And you know that as a woman, of course, by the time you start having children, your earning potential kind of changes, not because you're not capable of doing the job, but because by biology, you're having children, you're getting pregnant, you're doing all these things, you might need to take some time off work. In some cases, there are some people that, of course, they carry on doing everything. There are different ways people manage these things, but for majority of the cases, I know there are always exceptions, I'm not trying to generalize, but for majority of the cases, you find that the woman, her income sort of has a bit of a hiccup for the period where she's having kids. In that time, if let's say you marry someone that isn't generous, but you didn't mind because you were earning, when you stop earning, what then happens? So you need to know if this person is generous, if this person is willing to share their income with you, and then if this person is also generous to others. How they treat others is how they're going to treat you. They're not going to manufacture or come up with a new and different way of treating you. There's also something that I will call as being overly generous. So there's some people that they give to keep up with the Joneses. They give to keep up a certain appearance, but they don't even have as much as they give. But because they want to keep up with an appearance of how people see them, they keep giving even what they cannot afford. So that's also something to watch out for. You're watching this person and you're also asking the person questions. Let's say the person was generous. You say, oh, that was kind of you. Like when the person does things that in relation to money, one of the ways to find out more about their behaviors is to ask them a question about it, not necessarily just saying, oh, well done, you did a great job by giving this person. That's the way of starting the conversation. Oh, that's so kind of you to give to this person in need. Then from there, you can now ask more questions of the person. Another thing is the person an impulse spender? Do they spend to keep up with the Joneses? Another thing, do they spend to look fly for the gram? Are they so keen on their appearance and what things appear to be to others and the pressure they leave on others, that they spend a lot more in building an impression than in things that really matter? So these are the things you need to find out. Are they an impulse buyer or impulse spender, or do they spend for things that they've planned for, that they've budgeted for? And it's not just looking at the other party, even yourself. Before you get to the point where you're saying I do to somebody, you need to come to a point where you're evaluating your financial behaviors, because on your own part, you don't want to go and become a burden to somebody. So is the person a saver or a spender? Between myself and my husband, one of the things we found out even long before we got married was that I'm a saver and he's a spender. But what really saved us, anyway, I'm going to go into all of that later, so let me not jump the gun. And also, do they find it easy to borrow? There are some people that before you even blink your eyes, they've borrowed from like 400 people. They have a need. They don't plan ahead. This is the thing with impulse buying and impulse spending. When you don't plan to spend, you end up borrowing. There are certain things that you feel like, oh, I want to spend this amount of money on. I want to spend on it right now. You can defer that thing. You can build up the money, save gradually, and eventually buy that thing you want. So is the person you yourself that's planning to say I do, planning to get married, are you someone that can defer certain expenditure until you generate the money that you need to buy that thing? Or are you someone that once you need it, you must have it now, you go borrowing and all of that, and then there are debtors and creditors, you have credit card debts, you have all manner of debts chasing you? So these are the things to find out. When you find out their behaviors, it then empowers both of you to work on it together. Again, like I said, if you find that the person you're trying to you're planning on getting married is a spender or is a dreamer. There's some people, they have all of these dreams and they splurge money on their dreams, without doing proper research. And then they find out, oh, I've lost all of this money doing this thing that hasn't yielded anything. If you go, you have a conversation, and in observing your partner, you find out all these things, it's not enough to end the relationship. It doesn't mean you end the relationship, but it just means that you're now aware that these are the things you both need to work on in order to be on the right footing when you get married. A lot of people don't have conversations about finances before they get married. That's definitely not something you want to do. You also want to know what's their investment style. In fact, going back to the point of loaning, of borrowing money, it will also come to the point where for people that borrow a lot, you as their partner, they might then come and decide to borrow money from you. There's always the question of to loan or not to loan. You're in a relationship with this person, you see that this person has a need, and they come and ask you for money, and they say, give me this amount of money, I'm going to give you back at a later time. Personally, what I'll propose to you, I'm no financial advisor. These are just things that I've taken time to reflect on, to think about, and are conversations that I had with my husband before we got married. And even money talks are ongoing conversations between myself and my husband. So the person comes and says to you, oh, I want to borrow this amount of money from you. Personally, I'll say I tend not to borrow money I will not borrow an amount of money to anybody that I cannot let go of. So for instance, if someone asks me for, I don't know, let's say £50, I would only give that person the £50 if I know that I will not require that £50 back. I may not say to the person to say, oh, just take it, don't worry about paying me back. I might not say that, but I would naturally tend to only give that money away if I know that it will not affect our relationship. Because if I give out an amount of money that I need, and then I'm requesting it back from you, and you're not able to pay back that money, it can affect my relationship with you. And that's something you need to think about when you're in a courting relationship with somebody, you're planning to get married to them. You need to think about, if you're loaning them this money, how is it going to impact on the relationship? How is it going to affect your relationship? So if it's something that is not going to affect, remember, you're just in a relationship. Even if you're courting, you've set a wedding date, whatever, you don't want to go into your marriage on a bad footing, and you don't know if really and truly, because you're courting this person, is actually going to end up in marriage. There are lots of courtships, lots of people that have planned to get married that ended up not getting married. So you want to ensure that you leave things clean. So if you know that that's money you're not willing to part with, personally, I'll suggest you shouldn't lend them that amount of money. Also, you want to find out what's their investment style. Are they someone, because as you get married, you're growing old together, there's going to be retirement, there's going to be all of these bills and all these things that is going to be required of both of you. You're going to have kids if that's something you want. You're going to have to spend money on all these aspects of your life in terms of your upkeep, maintenance for both of you. So are they people that are willing to invest? Are they high risk takers? Are they low risk conservative investors? Or are they people that just don't think about investment, not interested in investment? These are things that you want to know about yourself, and you also want to know about your potential spouse. And also, when it comes to giving, do they tithe? Personally, I'm a Christian. Everything I talk about, my entire life, my existence, how I view the world, comes from my Christian frame of reference. So tithing is one of the things we do. It's important, giving to the church, to ensure that the needs of the church are met, because that's where I find strength and that's where I grow. So if you're a Christian as well, do they tithe? Do they give an offering? That's how you also know someone who is generous and who is willing to part with their money. And you also, it gives you an understanding of their relationship with money. Also, how do you prioritize what you spend on, and how do you save? That's something you should also find out about yourself, and also about the person you're willing to get married to. There's some people that having designers, having things with flashy labels are so important to them. There's some people that they have passions. Let's say they love cars, and so they might not necessarily have I don't know, let's say food to eat. There are some people that are that extreme. They might not have food to eat. They might not have certain basic amenities. But you see that car, getting that car is priority, and they go ahead and they get that car and they begin to struggle. They maybe borrow to meet their basic needs. Some people is going on holidays. They love to travel. And so as a result of that, they rack up a lot of debts, from trying to see the world. Seeing the world is a good thing and all of that. So these are things that you want to know about your potential partner. And you also want to know about yourself. You want to spend time reflecting about yourself, because believe me, financial issues is one of the most common reasons for divorce. And most of the time, it's not necessarily that both parties did not have money to meet their needs, but it's mainly due to financial behaviors and financial attitudes and values between both spouses that then eventually led to the point that they could not cope with each other. So these things are very important. Also, you want to find out what financial responsibilities do you have, and do they have. You want to be conscious of these things, because it's going to affect your finances and it's going to affect your relationship. So do either of you have debts, whether it's student loan debt, whether it's credit card debt, or whether it's just people around, whether it's bank loan, whether it's people around that you owe? You want to know how much they're owing, because you don't want a situation where you marry someone and then the bailiff is constantly at the door, or you're living in a particular house. Before you know, you lose your house, you lose this, you lose all manner of things. This is why it's important to know the other party's financial behaviors, not necessarily just how much they earn. There are some people that earn a lot, but all the money they earn goes to payment of debt. And at the end of the day, by the time all their outgoings have come out, either because they are paying debt or they're living beyond their means, or they have so much financial responsibilities that they are earning so much, but there's little to spend. So you stick to their financial status. You go into that marriage, and then you find that literally there's nothing, or you then have to support the family because you have more to spare, even if you might be earning less. So these are the things you want to find out. How is the debt being paid? If there's someone that owes, if you owe, you want to also ensure that you're paying off your debt even as you prepare for marriage. You want to find out, are they financially responsible for their siblings? Are they financially responsible for their parents? Do they have children that they're supporting financially? Are they paying child support? Do you get? Because all of these things definitely would affect your relationship to money. All of these things can lead to arguments in the future. So you want to know upfront, because one thing I find is that if you know upfront, you can be able to position your mind, position your heart to know that, okay, these are the things we need to do, and you can plan better financially. Really and truly, you do not want to get married to somebody without having a financial understanding of them, and also allowing them room to have a financial understanding of yourself. Do they pay rent, or do they live with their family? If they live with their family, are they able to pay rent? You know, you don't want to get married to someone who you're not sure where you're going to stay, or then you end up getting married and then you move in with the in-laws. That's another kettle of fish. So there are also certain behaviors that affect finances. One is openness to communicating and sharing. If you're dealing with someone, however their financial status is, or their financial behaviors are, if you're in a position where you're open to communicate, you're open about what's really going on with you, you're not lying, you're not keeping secrets, and also the other party is open about what's happening with them financially, they are willing to share necessary information, that gives you an edge. Regardless of the financial behavior, regardless of the wrong values, whatever it is something that can help both of you, because you can then talk about it and you can come up with a plan together. When you're both still unmarried, I don't advise that you join up financially. I feel like that is a wrong move. That opens the door to a lot of issues that you don't want to be dealing with when you don't have a solid commitment and a solid union with another person. Keep your finances separate, but you can help each other set financial goals. If you find that, oh, you're in lots of debt or whatever, you can defer the marriage and then you can come up with a plan. Okay, this is how we're going to cover this debt, and then you begin to pay small till you get to a place where you feel like, okay, we're both in a good place to then get married. Or you can both decide to get married, but then you both have a financial plan to deal with the things that can potentially be stressors to you as newlyweds and as a married couple. So openness to communicating and to sharing is really important. Recently, I heard the story of a couple. They were married, they had been married for years, and suddenly they got a divorce. The woman said she wanted a divorce. Why did she say she wants a divorce? Because she had always thought that they were living, that they didn't have money, that they were poor. And one day the bank statement came in the post to the house, and she saw that they had hundreds of thousands in an account just sitting there that she didn't know anything about. Her husband had been keeping from her, and she just couldn't believe it. She had been living literally in, should I say, poverty, living on a budget. And this man had all of this money that he had kept to the side for God knows what, that she was just finding out about. So this is why it's really important to ensure that, to find out if this person is open to communicate and find out as much information as you can. And also, if you're dealing with someone that's not open to communicating about money, sharing about their finances, you can help them get to that point. You can help them understand that this is something that we need to do. If we're going to get married, we need to be on the same page. Remember, marriage is a partnership. You need to treat your marriage as a partnership. I know that there's this whole traditional idea of the woman getting married to the man, expecting that the man will foot all of the bills, and so because of that, she becomes like a quiet partner, or a partner that doesn't really have a say when it comes to key things like finances. Let me tell you something. If you get married to someone and you haven't really understood them financially, and both of you have not come to a place where you both have a say in your financial affairs, and not in the sense of controlling, but in the sense of you're both open to influencing each other financially. If you're not in that place, you'll be in a position where you're living out the impact of whatever financial decisions the other party makes, but you don't have a say. Do you understand? So things will be if the person has negative financial behaviors, things will be impacting you negatively, but there's nothing you can do about it. You can't say anything about it. You just live through it. So this is something that you want to make sure that you deal with before you get to that point. Another thing is the person willing to adjust? This is something I think I've spoken on the show before: teachableness. If you want to get married to somebody, you yourself, you need to make sure that you're teachable. You're somebody that can be corrected. You're somebody that they can say to you, you're going down the wrong path, turn around to the right path. You're someone that they can say to you, this thing you did now is silly. Even if, of course, you might be like, oh, how dare you tell me I'm silly? But you're willing to hear, listen to counsel, listen to advice, listen to correction. You need to be in that place and in that stage. If you're listening to this, you haven't come to you're at the point where you're so sensitive that the moment somebody tells you you haven't done right, you haven't done this, you get so agitated, so angry, so anxious, and your attitude changes and all of that. That's something that you need to review. You need to work on, because nobody is perfect in life. If you're not willing to hear that you're wrong or that you're not doing well, that means you're not willing to be better. And that's something that you also need to look out for in your potential partner. Remember, like I said, a lot of things are not necessarily deal breakers. They are only deal breakers when it's something that you won't work on. You yourself won't work on, the other party won't work on, or both of you are not willing to work on it and make flexible adjustments. Someone who is teachable is willing to make flexible adjustments, is willing to work with you, is willing to say, oh, this thing I've done is wrong, I will do better next time. For myself and my husband tells me all the time, oh, this thing, you're getting it wrong here, do this, do that. He says it in different ways. Sometimes I'm not happy about how he says it, but I take it on, because for me, I know that it's very important for me to receive correction so that I can be better. And that's the attitude with which you want to get married. And that's the same thing as my husband. Sometimes we have to talk about things over and over again, but even himself, he takes these things on board and he makes adjustments. That's how we're able to thrive. That's how we're able to be better. Also, is the person stingy, or is the person self-centered? That's something that you want to find out, you want to know, because these are behaviors that affect finances. Remember, if someone is self-centered, they're thinking of only themselves, they're stingy, they're not going to want to share whatever it is that they have, their income, their money, however much they have. Remember, I said earlier on, and I've heard of families where you see that the man is earning a large amount of money, he's doing very well, but he's not sharing it with his spouse. In fact, there was one time I heard of the story of this woman that she hid a lot of money that she had away from her partner, to the point where they were looking for a house to move to. She owned the house and she rented the house to her husband. He didn't know that the house belonged to her. He didn't know he was paying rent to his wife. So she was making all of this money. And when the man found out, he was shocked. There are a lot of people that approach marriage with the sense of, oh, whatever my husband makes is for both of us, and whatever I make is mine. My money is mine. Therefore, I keep details about my finances private, and then I share what my husband has. That mentality is archaic. That mentality means that you're not partnering with your husband. That mentality means that you're thinking of only yourself and not necessarily the union that you're in. And it can lead to a lot of issues down the line. Personally, what I'm proposing is, when you get married to somebody, you're forming a partnership, not just a covenant, but you're also becoming a partner to this person. And so you want to ensure that in areas that are important for both of you, not just the two of you, but also your children, you want to find out that you want to ensure that in those areas you partner with your husband to create the best that you can create for yourself, for both of you, and for your family. Also, controlling behavior. Some people, they don't give money simply because they want to control within a relationship. Oh, I'm going to be in charge of the budget, I'm going to be in charge of whatever it is. And so they keep giving you piecemeal, and that way they can control what you do. Because money is, when you have a lot of money, you have freedom. There's the freedom that comes with money. And some people who are controlling, they don't want you to have that freedom. So you find that they are not really investing. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, that's my baby. So you find out that they're not really because they don't want you to understand. They don't want you to have the freedom that comes with controlling your own finances. So they sort of withhold so that they can have more control over you. That's something to be watchful of. Also, income behaviors. You want to find out if there are people that are into business, or they just want to stick to the 9 to 5, or even if they're just 9 to 5 people or they're entrepreneurs, are they willing to allow you to explore your creative side or your entrepreneurial side? So these are these are behaviors that can affect your finances that you want to find out before you go on to say I do. It's really important that you find out these things. It's important that you have a conversation about your finances before you go ahead to get married to anybody. So I'm going to share some tips on communicating about your finance. Having that money talk, really, it can be difficult. It can feel a bit awkward. So it's very important that you know how you introduce it, especially for someone who you haven't, of course, if you're not married to the person, you want to know how you introduce that sort of conversation. So it's very important that your communication is clear, that both of you are very clear on these things that I've spoken about, and have it as early as possible. Have the conversation as early as possible. You're in a relationship with somebody. You don't want it to be that they've proposed to you, you said yes, and then you now have this conversation and you find out all of these things that you know that you cannot cope with if you decide to go ahead with the marriage. So that's why it's important you have this conversation early enough. When you're in a relationship with somebody, is getting serious, you're seeing that this thing is going to progress to the next level, you want to know about them financially, and you want to also open yourself up to them financially, of course with wisdom as well. And also, if you can have this conversation right, if you have it early enough, it can prevent lots of arguments in the future. It will set you, both of you, on the right footing for a good and long-lasting relationship ahead. You want to find out how much are they owing. How much do they have in debt? You want to find out how much they are earning, although it's sensitive, but this is something you want to know. You want to know how much they are owing. You want to know what their financial goals are, and you want to know the bills, what their financial responsibilities are. So even if it's uncomfortable, an easy place to start is asking, what are your financial goals? So when they tell you, oh, this is what I'd like to do, I'd like to, I don't know, travel the world, I'd like to go on holiday, I'd like to do whatever it is that they want to do, or however it is that it is much that they say, oh, this is my target earning for the end of the year, then you ask them, how are you going to do that? You want to travel the world, how are you going to do that? Are you earning enough? Will your salary cover this and more? Will your income, maybe it's from your businesses or your investments or whatever it is, will it cover the cost of this and more? So when you start asking that question, you're not just directly going on to say, how much are you earning? Now, you might be in a space where your relationship with your partner is to the point where you can just go straight to the point, hit the nail on the head and say, how much are you earning? Or if you feel awkward about the conversation, you can start by asking about their financial goals. You can even ask, do you own your house, or do you want to own your house at some point? What are your plans for achieving that? And things like that. When you ask about plans, it gives you room to find out how much they are earning, or by the time they then go on to tell you how they intend to achieve it, that sort of gives you a picture of their finances. And within that, you can then go on to say, oh, by then, would you have covered your debts? Are you owing any money? Do you think that's going to be a hindrance and things like that before things start opening up? If the person is open enough and the person trusts you, at that point they will begin to tell you more about themselves. And remember, you don't want it to be one-sided. If the person tells you, even gives you some level of information about themselves, you also want to share about yourself as well, to make them also feel comfortable and willing and ready to share. Remember, I said it's not a one-sided thing, it's a partnership. So in as much as you expect openness, you need to be willing to give openness as well. You can also ask them things that are important to them. What would you rather spend your money on? Things like that. Questions like that can open a whole conversation about their finances and give you a picture, give you a glimpse, and you also want to do the same for them. Another thing I'm going to say is, when you're in a relationship with somebody, you haven't gotten married to the person, definitely I would say, even for married couples, joint accounts need to be planned. You don't just join up everything and then you're having arguments every day as to who spent what and why, you know. So when you're single, I won't say have a joint account or join up your finances, but then you can decide to set financial goals together, separate financial goals. But by the time you work on these things together, it gives you an understanding of how both of you spend. And if you then identify issues with how you spend, either of you spend, it gives you an opportunity to begin to work on these issues. If you're better at saving, better at investing, better at using your money, better at generating income, you can then begin to help your partner to come to that point, because by setting financial goals together, you have an understanding that this is an area they need help in. You have an understanding that this is an area they need to cut back. And then in your mind, you know that, okay, I'm getting married to this person, and these are the areas that they might need help and support with. And like I said, if both of you are teachable, both of you are people that make flexible adjustments for each other, you then begin to work on these things. You also assess financial relationships and help each other reach those financial goals. So this is just what I wanted to say to you, what I wanted to share about setting financial goals. Remember, you don't want to be in a position where you get married to somebody without having a financial understanding of yourself and of them. It's really important. If you have any questions regarding finances and your relationship, or you find yourself in a state where you're a bit confused, or you find yourself where you said yes to somebody, but there are all of these financial situations that the person is in, that you're like, oh my goodness, I'm not prepared for this, I'm not prepared to go into this, it's something that you can work on. If the person is teachable, if both of you are teachable, you don't want to find yourself in a bad financial spot when you get married. So be brave and have the conversation. That's it for today's show. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you've learned a thing or two that will help you prepare a solid foundation for marriage. Next time, I'm going to come and talk to you about how to arguing well. It's very important that before you get married, you know how to argue, or even if you're married, knowing how to argue is something that can save your relationship. Thanks for watching. Do have a lovely week, and please hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. Bye.